And, I got to thinking about this when we were putting together the show, who needs to make the college football playoff. I think Florida needs to make the college football playoff in 2025. Now, hear me clearly. I am not saying they need to make the playoff, otherwise Billy Napier's out of town. I'm not saying that. You could win 8 games, 9 games, and I think for Billy Napier, there is still a conversation to be had around him being the right guy in Gainesville, especially if it's 9. But the point I'm making here is there's an opportunity for Florida in 2025. Isn't that what life's about, man? Like you do the work behind the scenes, your moment comes, and when you got that moment, shout out Marshall Mathers, you're going to lose it and let it slip away? Would you grasp it, take it for everything it's worth? I think that's Florida here in 2025. And the reason why I feel that way, we've said this a few times, but you look across the conference, the most important position in sports is quarterback. There's a lot of uncertainty in the SEC at quarterback, a lot of new faces. Florida's 8 conference opponents, 4 of them will be starting somebody new they didn't start last year at quarterback. Meanwhile, Florida's playing a guy that some people would argue has the most upside in all of college football, period, in DJ Lagway. I know this, 6-1 as a starter. I know this, finished the year white hot with wins over Ole Miss and LSU. It wasn't even 100% healthy. Like, that's enough to get me excited. So you feel certain about who you have. And across the conference, even the top 3 teams that are supposed to win the conference, the top 3 best odds in Texas and Georgia, Alabama, all good rosters, all well-coached, all good teams. There's no guarantee what those teams are going to have at quarterback. There's confidence. I don't think there's guarantee. Florida, to me, at this point, should feel as close as you can to a guarantee at quarterback with what you saw a season ago. It's my humble opinion. Now, it still has to do it. Still has to build off last year, but like having actually seen it happen in practice, not in practice behind closed doors, I'm saying in practice like you saw it in an actual game, be practiced out, should be encouraging. Absolutely should be encouraging. So you take the DJ Lagway of it all, and you pair that with what the roster is around him. I mentioned returning production a couple times on this show. Y'all, you have a roster, I think, to maximize DJ Lagway. You're top 20 in returning production. The only team that you play on your schedule that has better returning production than you is Texas A&M. And when Florida played A&M last year, they were nowhere near the team they were in the month of November. So I like the returning production, of course, but even more, man, I like the scars on this team. I really do. Because we look at last year, and I mentioned the A&M game. Post A&M, that was in September, everybody, myself included, assumed that Billy Napier was going to get fired. Think about how a team handles that internally. Like, you can say you don't listen to the media or whatever. You say you put on the blinders, worry about the building. Everybody has an iPhone. We all got Twitter. Everybody else was being said. Think about how difficult that was to manage that kind of turbulence with all the outside noise, and then for them to shrug that off and to still finish with 8 wins with the bowl game. That tells me a lot about the way they're wired. Oh, on top of that, you lose your senior leader at quarterback and you have to play a true freshman, DJ Lagway, the rest of the way. That turned out being a great thing. But for that team to not flinch, I love the makeup of this team, man. I said it. I love their scars. I love the way they're battle tested. Now, the thing that probably people will push back with is, well, JD, schedules Hunger Games. I don't disagree. It is. Like, it's brutal. What I would say, though, is however hard the schedule is, it also still provides, in a weird way, some margin for Florida. I mentioned Florida. Let's say they win 9 games next year. I think Florida is one of 2 teams in the sport that could make the playoff at 9-3, them and Oklahoma. As much as Florida has, so many preseason ranked opponents, that could kind of be the advantage for Florida in a bizarre way. I mentioned margin. Florida plays 3 ranked opponents in the month of November. As of right now, we'll see what they are when they play them, but as of right now, that's what Florida has lined up. If they stumble a little bit early, it's not ideal, but they have a chance to close pretty strong with that schedule. And so, yes, I do think the schedule's tough. I totally get it, but to be able to potentially lose 3 games, if they look the right way, they're against the right teams, Florida, I don't think it's irresponsible to assume they would potentially make the college football playoff. Now, they probably need some help around them, but I think that's in the discussion. So if that happens now, if Florida does make the playoff, we made this point, but I want to make it one more time. Florida football would flywheel. It would be rocket fuel on that thing. Because last season, it won 7 games, and they were on the verge of having a top 10 class. What if they make the playoff? You don't think they'd have a top 10 class and then some? You don't think that Billy Napier, the approval rating, the security around Florida would be just astronomically in a different place? I do. And so when we talk about what Florida is, They are the team in the most talent-rich state with the conference logo on their helmet that produces the most draft picks. That equation should set them up for pretty good success. So it's not about pressure for Billy Napier as much as it is for me about opportunity with where the rest of the conference is, where your roster is, who your quarterback is, all those things. Time is now, baby. The time is now. Strike while the iron's hot. We're here for it. We're all the way here for it. I'm really pumped to get the message boards on Gators Online and just get a pulse for the spring intel out there. It's going to be fun.